We're also very fortunate to be joined by Trevor's parents, Paula and Joey Reed. Now I want to take a moment and turn this over to my good friend, Congressman August Pfluger from Texas, who will introduce a bipartisan, bicameral resolution calling for Trevor's immediate release. August?
Leader McCarthy, thank you. And Senator Cornyn, Ranking Member McCall, thanks for being here. To Trevor's parents, Paula and Joey, thank you for joining us today. Trevor is my constituent from Granbury, Texas. He's an Eagle Scout, a U.S. Marine, and more importantly, a beloved son who has been sentenced to spend a decade of his life in a Russian prison for a crime that he did not commit. Trevor was initially detained for public intoxication, but when the Russian Federal Security Service discovered that he's a U.S. Marine, they upped the charges and accused him of endangering the lives of police officers. These charges were clearly politically motivated, and the entire process has been a sham. The accusation, the lack of evidence to support it was so ridiculous that even a Russian judge erupted in laughter in the courtroom during the trial at the lack of evidence. U.S. Ambassador John Sullivan said justice was not even considered in this case and described the trial as the theater of the absurd. Our resolution and our message are simple. The United States will not tolerate an American citizen being held by the Putin regime as a political pawn. Free Trevor Reed. With that, I'm proud to introduce Senator Cornyn of the great state of Texas, who has introduced the Senate companion piece of legislation to this bill. Senator Cornyn.
Well, thanks, Congressman Pfluger and Leader McCarthy, Congressman McCall. Good to be with all of you today. We're here to demand justice for Trevor Reed, who's been unlawfully detained by the Russian government for now 2 years. One day is too long for these ludicrous charges, and the current evidence suggests that they do not support the charges brought against Trevor or in the show trial that was conducted in which he was convicted. I did have the privilege earlier of meeting with Trevor's mother while his dad was still, I believe, over in Moscow. I was moved, of course, by her strength under incredibly difficult circumstance. It's hard for any of us to fathom what it must be like to have a loved one falsely accused of these charges sitting in a foreign prison. I've, along with my colleagues here, have joined in many different forums to demand the release of Trevor. And today we're here once again to demand that the Russian Federation release Trevor Reed and all other political prisoners that they hold. It's time to bring Trevor home. I'm going to turn the floor over to my friend, Congressman Michael McCall, who's a ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee.
Thank you, Senator. Leader August. We're here today to call on the Putin regime to release Trevor Reed immediately. Trevor's an American hero who proudly served his country in the United States Marines. But Putin has been holding him as a political pawn and a hostage for a crime he did not commit. His trial was a kangaroo court, as August mentioned. Even the judge laughed at the evidence, but still convicted him and sent him to a Russian prison for 9 years. Unfortunately, Trevor isn't the only American being held by the Putin regime. Paul Whelan has also been held in Russia for over 2 years for false charges. So we are here today to send a strong message to Putin. America will not tolerate his corrupt regime holding U.S. citizens hostage under false pretenses. The nightmare for these two brave Americans and their families must end immediately. Texas and America stands with Trevor. And on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, we reintroduced our resolution, August and I did, to free Trevor, which passed the House last Congress and hopefully the Senate this Congress. And we will continue to fight every day until we bring Trevor home to his family. I had the honor to meet Trevor's mother about 6 months ago at the Capitol, very moving ceremony. And I want to introduce Trevor's parents, Paula and Joey. As I said, I've met Paula on several occasions, and each time I'm reminded how strong the Reed family is. And as a father myself of 5 children, I can't imagine the pain and suffering they live with every day. So I'm pleased that they're able to talk to us remotely today about their son, Trevor. I turn it over to you, Paula and Joey.
Thank you, Congressman McCall, and everyone there for everything you're doing and everything members of Congress are doing, and for the United States State Department. We just want to United States, people in the United States to know that our son is not guilty. And it's not just because we're his parents that we believe that. It's based on the evidence, the expert witnesses, the witnesses, and like you said, the entire sham of the trial, and it continues with his appeal. The court judge submitted transcripts which left out witness testimony and changed witness testimony, even though American media was present and recorded the whole thing. And so it's a sham from beginning to end. Our son is innocent, and he's being held because he's he's a former United States Marine.
Paula, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to say that it has been a really long, hard time to be without him. And I welcome everyone who's called me and to wish good wishes and stuff, but you really don't know until you're in this situation. It's not something I would wish on anyone else. It's just really hard being without my son.
And we'd also like to say that my over a year in Russia, we've met so many wonderful people in Russia that are also trying to help Trevor, and we feel sorry for them that they're having to live with a government like this. Society appears to be normal and progressive and growing and just a great society, and yet beneath it is still apparently this old USSR mentality with the police and the judicial system. And our son has gotten caught up in it. And I should say we're concerned about the heightened rhetoric between our countries, and we're fearful that this will affect our son in the long term, and we just want to get him home before our two countries get more angry with each other. Our peoples are not enemies. The Russian people are not our enemy. They look and act and have cultures just like the American people. They just don't speak English, and they have a different government. It's amazing how great they are. Anyway, and so we wish our countries could get along better, and we just want our son home.
Thank you very much for that. I know I have three of my colleagues here who are from Texas, and Trevor is your constituent's August, but prior to that, he lived in California. And he lived there for 16 years. He graduated from Tehachapi High School in my district. He was an Eagle Scout. And most importantly, he has honorably served our country, as you said. I've heard from constituents in Tehachapi, families and children who grew up with Trevor, and they make the case of what an amazing man he was and is, and that just how horrible the circumstances of his case are. It's unjust the way he's been treated by the Russians judicial system. There's been nothing short what I would call cruel. That's why we are united in this in a bipartisan, bicameral, to send a very clear message. We've co-sponsored this in the last Congress, but we're working with the Biden administration. Hopefully, the Russian government will see what is right here, bring them home to us and to you, and we want to continue to reassure both of you that Trevor is not forgotten. On the contrary. He is very much at the forefront, and that's why we're here today. And we will not stop working until we bring him home safely. With that, we can take some questions from those on the Zoom call as well.
Thank you. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please chat the moderator directly. There are currently no questions in the queue at this time.
August, do you want to have the last word then?
I appreciate the opportunity to join in a bicameral, bipartisan way. And for Trevor's parents, I think everybody here has said it very well, that there's no way that any of us could know how hard this is. And would like to reassure Paula, you and Joey, and let you know that the State Department, Ambassador Sullivan, both houses, the Senate and the House of Congress, are working tirelessly to make sure that Trevor, an innocent man, will come home soon. Our prayers are with you, and we just continue to think about you every single day. Thank you for the time to be here. Mr. Putin, release Trevor now.
We do have a question now. Our first question comes from Abby Livingston. Abby, your line is now open.
Hi. I I guess I'm just curious, can y'all give us a sense of what the engagement of the State Department is on this issue and the sense of how active they are?
The State Department has an ambassador for hostages. They're very involved in the negotiations with the Putin regime. Obviously, our relationship's not very great, as I think Joey mentioned. And we're looking at more sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. But they are very engaged in the situation, and we're going to make sure they continue to do so.
And I think our ambassador to Moscow, Ambassador Sullivan, has been very diligent about monitoring not only the circumstances of the trial, but also the circumstances of Trevor's incarceration. And I think the reports he's made have been a source, I hope, of comfort to the family, knowing that the United States government will not rest until Trevor is released. And in the meantime, we will make sure that the conditions of his confinement are at least humane.
Sorry, another question.
Our next question comes from Elizabeth Thompson at the Dallas Morning News. Elizabeth, your line is now open.
Hi, my question is for Mr. and Mrs. Reed. Are you worried that the heightened relations between the US and Russia could prevent Trevor from coming home?
Okay, yes, we are. We're very worried, just like Joey said earlier. The Russian people are wonderful. Americans are fine. It's just the governments that need to come to an agreement so we can bring Trevor home. So we are very worried, yes.
Our next question comes from Jennifer Hansler with CNN. Jennifer, your line is now open.
Hi, thanks so much. I have two questions. First, for the Reeds, have you been able to speak to Trevor since he was transferred without notice last week? What is his condition? Are you aware of where he is now? And then for the congressman, there's been some talk in Russian media, potential prisoner swap, at least for Paul Whelan. Would you support a swap for Trevor Reed? Thank you.
Yes, we got a letter from Trevor describing some of the things that's happened to him, but the most of our information has come from the embassy, and we want to thank all the embassy staff and Ambassador Sullivan and Spiha Roger Karstens at the State Department for all they're doing for him. But it's our understanding that he was not injured and he was not interrogated. But he was put into a cell for 3 days with 7 deranged people that I think many of them were murderers. And it was horrid conditions. And the prison that he went to apparently is rated in the top 10 worst prisons in the world. So we're happy he's out of there. He went back to his prison after 10 days. And they actually put him back in the same cell with the people he'd been with. So we're happy for all of that. So.
Our next question comes from Jack Beyrer from the Washington Free Beacon. Jack, your line is now open.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time today. This is for the delegation. Just to the Reed's point just now about the transfer from CISO 5 to CISO 2 and back again. I understand that this was done without informing Ambassador Sullivan by Russian authorities. Is this, to your understanding, in violation of any international treaty law? Such as the Vienna Convention between consuls, and what can Congress do to push back on this kind of misbehavior from Russian authorities?
Well, I'm reminded that former Justice Antonin Scalia, talking about the constitutions, said that the former Soviet Union, now the Russian Federation, had one of the best constitutions in the world on paper. But the difference was they did not have an independent judiciary. And that is the crown jewels of our government, is our independent judiciary, something which Russia lacks. They're just an arm of the regime, and obviously are doing exactly what Mr. Putin demand under these circumstances. And so none of the ordinary rules, due process of law, fairness, transparency, none of those apply. But if Russia wants to be viewed as a as a enlightened government, one that's can influence policy around the world. I think it needs to up its game and correct these deficiencies when it comes to these show trials against American citizens and lack of transparency and fair process. That's because their system is not like ours because they don't have a independent judiciary. It's a run by Mr. Putin and his cronies.
Yeah, if I can add it, I talked to Ambassador Sullivan, who's very much on this case, about this transfer to basically a psychiatric prison under very harsh conditions. The Russian government is telling him that it was just simply a mistake. But our authorities and the ambassador at the embassy in Moscow were investigating this because if that was not a mistake and done intentionally as an act of punishment or torture, then we possibly could be looking at international law violations.
Can I mention something? The prison that he was sent to, by the way, is the prison where Sergei Magnitsky died, and who the Magnitsky sanctions are named after. That was the prison where he perished.
Any more
Our
questions?
final question comes from David Kaplan from KBAK KBFX. David, your line is now open.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Congressman and parents for being here. We had some technical issues at the beginning, so I missed the beginning. I apologize if this was asked. Can someone tell me what is the next step in the appeals process since the sentence was handed out last July? What is the next step for you folks in appealing this?
We're currently in the first step of appeal with the Moscow City Court, which would be a regional or a state court. And then we don't anticipate winning there. And following that, we'll be appealing to the Court of Causation. And after that, to the Russian Federation Constitutional Supreme Court. And we've already been through this process with his denial of bail, which the Supreme Court found was in violation of Russian law and practices. And yet when it was sent back to the lower court and Moscow City Court, they still refused to release our son on bail. So, but we have our attorneys say if there couldn't be a better case to take to the Supreme Court if the Supreme Court ruled based on the law, because there's been so many laws violated in our son's trial. And that's all we asked for from the beginning, is that he be given at least the same fairness in his trial as regular Russian citizens. And that was not the case.
Yeah, and to your question and to Senator Cornyn's point, the fact is that the justice system can't be trusted. And we've seen the sham of the trial from the beginning to now. And that's what's most concerning. And, to address a previous question, the State Department has been very, very involved, both in the latter part of 2020 and into the beginning of 2021. And our thanks and gratitude to their continued efforts to appeal for fairness and transparency, something which has not been afforded to Trevor Reed yet.
Well, we thank you for joining us. One thing we want to make sure Paula and Joey know that Trevor is not forgotten. And we will continue to work to make sure he comes home safely and back with all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much. We appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.